Hello everyone. So this is the commentary for what I think was the last animation project for the second year at uni. Hang on, let me just put the volume down. Okay, the volume should be gone. And I hope you can see this as well. So yeah, this brief came about in December time, funnily enough, because when you first start well, no, it just depends what uni it is, but with my second year at uni, we were given two animation briefs. I was making them as precise and quick as possible. There was the essay that was around as well. And then Christmas time came about, and the teachers were like, "Oh, got this massive project for the rest of the second year." I was like, "Oh God!" And yeah, I think the essay was still about, and the extensions were still about, and who knows what else I was doing the second year? I can't quite remember. Um, Yeah, never mind that. But yeah, this project was absolutely enormous. Well, I was making it like kind of small at first, and interestingly enough, other people in my year they were going for like much smaller scale environments and that, which yeah did definitely suit with what they were going for. Although yeah, just to take a step back, so the brief was that we were given all sorts of this archive footage from back at the 40s and onwards, just like snippets of documentaries. And yeah, you pick one of them, and I chose this one, which is about I think it's a Dover. I think yeah, just like recovering from World War Two and how what the damage was like and the plan to rebuild. And yeah, so I just thought yeah that is like a cool simple. Just like I knew what ideas I could go for to visually represent it, and we've been told to do it in a VR kind of way. And so yeah, thanks to my college years, I had some familiarity for how to do VR because oh yeah, of course in the lessons, there was just like a lot more possibilities for what you can do with VR, and yeah, this was almost like an educational approach. And yeah, because when you look back at my college one, it's just like one setting, loads of last sets. Sound at least is applied. Um, but at uni, however, they're like, oh, this is how to loop animations in the setting, and this is, and things you can still animate normally, and and adding footage and even adding a lot of other graphics too. So it's almost like no different to animating 3D, but it's um it's just having it render in VR. And because when you render a single setting, for instance, just like one rendering one frame, but like a 3D sequence, you are just still rendering all of the frames. And yeah, and then you can just see how the animated bits and bobs were applied over time. And so yeah, you can see how the footage is a bit skew with, but that's just because of the VR camera, so you can definitely see that more in depth from my actual video. So yeah, I think before we expand, let's uh, break down the video. So you can see how there was like text at the start, there's text at the end, music starts, and I remember having a version of the animation where it immediately starts off with the documentary audio, which I think that we had to imply as you visualize it. Yeah, once again, I didn't really see any other people's work. I remember like a couple of snippets, but yeah, I never really like saw or experienced double experience because we even had that moment where we did see what our work would have looked like with the VR goggles on, and unfortunately it was a bit blurry because it wasn't that high definition. I still tried to go for a 1080 render, but if it was 4K, my gosh, that would have looked really cool. And so uh, yeah, and at all angles, yeah, you could definitely infer a sea horizon, but the cliffs ahead, you can just simply see that it's just one chunk of a cliff. And but yeah, this film is intended to be a tad more abstract from time to time. which I guess could be argued to be a bit inconsistent because you then go on to like proper fully fledged environments later on. But regardless, so the camera's on a plane and it's actually the setting that's moving, not the plane, so that was a clever illusion. And yeah, the plane is like all metallic and the propeller moves in the way which is neat, and yeah, I remember liking it. And also the plane logos at the side, um, they changed to create I think looking back, it's like to create that symbolism of, hang on, oh no, the logos didn't change. Okay, I thought I must be getting confused with something else. But yeah, I think it's a enemy plane, I think, heading towards Dover, and you can also see some of the footage of just some of the scenery. These are like the opening parts of the documentary. Yeah, just introducing it. Yeah, the documentary is simply called Dover Springs, and it was made in 1964, 63? No, 43 or 44, something like that. Yeah, 60s. No, that doesn't make sense either because it would have been after the war. So this is like, what's this early 60s then? Oh my gosh, I need to have a look. It's been so long since I've had a look. Um, but anyway, you can see how the sun's bouncing off the plane, which is kind of neat. And but also you can see these animated figures ahead. So yeah, a large portion of this brief just consisted of me drawing on top of myself and doing these animated people. I just remember because I think because I was like really narrowing down how to make it achievable as possible, so I created the settings and I was like, oh, these settings need people. And once we were told how to apply a looped animated sequence on a certain surface within a 3D environment, that you can do like that on After Effects as well, but I managed to do it in 3D, and you can see more of that later on. And I think on After Effects, these people just simply added on, and yeah, they were just simply made with a squiggly line. And yeah, I think that alone like took a month to animate all sorts of different people and applying them to all of these environments. Because I also made 2 renders. One of them, I think, just had all of the settings being still with the audio and the people being animated. But then when creating the second version, more adjustments were made, and then a whole heap were added onto After Effects in the later points. Anyway, so yeah, and the residents who all sorts. So these are like the workers, which I guess. But if this is like set as the war is like beginning, then why would there be workers there? Maybe it's just like a sign of making repairs already, and yet more Dover is about to get damaged. I think that's what I was probably trying to go for, or maybe just to help introduce the theming of the animation. I suppose it's abstract after all. But also this cliff also has these miniature houses, which you can't really see, and I think one or 2 of them are floating. And oh, is that a boat or a harbour down below? Oh, I can see some things below. Oh wow, okay. That must be like a harbour and a ship and that. Oh, actually, hang on, no, ignore me. I think we're just transitioning, that's why. No, not no. I think there were some like boats below. That's neat. So I was adding more to like sea with the sea, I suppose. And also, yeah, you can see how the sea was animated. Just a loopable sequence, and they're just simply lines. Getting quickly about. And not to mention when we were texturing. The tutors were like, how could you texture this further? And so I just tried to put these squiggly lines, and trust me, they do look, well, a tad better when being able to look around. But yeah, I felt like I could have done something a bit more professional. And yeah, these poppies were added in After Effects, and yeah, and you're like making sure they were just like placed on properly, especially with the 360 effect. And you can also see at the buildings on either side the the residents doing all sorts. They are looped, but more convincingly so. And you can also see later on how some of the windows lit up. That's by creating a mask and a growing effect. And some other buildings get completely covered in this squiggly black boxes, which they get added on over time. And some more sudden than others, get gradually added. and some smoke also appears, and you can also see the plants fading away too, which I think this this scene is almost like symbolizing the gradual damage over time, because you can see the 3D green screen rubble that gets added more so on later on, and also these shapes are arriving or leaving, unless it was just a way to showcase the harbour, because I think that's what that footage ahead was showing, what the close look at the coast is like. But yeah, it's implemented well enough, and yeah, you can really see the change of environment, and you can already see how these motions and these effects really add to add to the life of the environment. I like the way they flicker out as well, almost like bulbs going off. Yeah, that was kind of neat. And I guess like having them, well, not only does the blackening and the glowing of these buildings add more life to the environment, but I guess it also shows which buildings like stood tall and which ones sadly crumbled during the war. And also, just I wonder if I have a look at these ships as well, because they're kind of basic, but I kind of like them. I think they're turning as well. Yeah, they're kind of convincing. Oh, I just had to hope. I think I did try and research some ships. I was researching all sorts of assets which would have matched during the 1940s, and then I think the footage of the documentary gradually comes about. But also, this is probably the best scene, I think, even if it is a tad abstract, because because it's made up of horizons. The car is just going up and down, as you'll see. Yeah, this car like zooms all across, and there's even a proper accurate 1940s car as well. Like if you have a look there, you can definitely see the shapes, and yeah, it was done quite cool. And it was I even used a what's it called? It has a special name, but the blueprints where when you're animating the 3D model and you're using a blueprint to help, and you like make sure all of the edges and angles are accurate from all angles. This is how I've got this proper cool car. And yeah, you can see more of the documentary footage, just a lot of just like a lot of shots of buildings. Yeah, because the documentary had segments like that, and that's what I wanted to go for, because I didn't want to go for any visuals of people talking, because that wouldn't really add much. You're already hearing the speaking, and not to mention this documentary is quite feels about like 20 minutes, and I only chose a specific section of the bloke talking about um, yeah, like they do, just talking about some of the effects and how they'll be moving forward. And you also see in this, I think maybe in all of the scenes, that the plane is going all around. But as you may have spotted from time to time, the plane has like this weird angle from time to time, because it wasn't. I don't think it was quite animated properly. So the way it like turns and moves forward, it wasn't as natural as I would have liked it to be. And I don't think I've animated the spinning propeller at the front either. I'm quite interested in that, but still. Also, these are more plants in the background. These are just added. I think they do gain colour later on, actually. But you can see, yeah, all of this rubble was natural. I placed it all across the ground. And also, yeah, this setting used to be, like just like a load of buildings, still there as, as you just like watch them all around you. But I think luckily I didn't add any like land below. I think these houses or buildings were just probably added with hollow ground already below. But then that's where I had the idea of, unless it was suggested, but even the screen's getting brighter, I think. Anyway, but yeah, these building lights slowly going up, and when you look on the right, actually, it doesn't all move simultaneously. There's just some rising more than others, and it's extremely cool. And thanks to the lighting as well, like the sunlight, and it makes it like more natural. And I remember, I think I said this in my ranking video, because one of my intentions was to create, because I think some of us had fun watching miniatures or moving trains or even looking down at Lego creations, that Legoland, and there's like this satisfying feeling you get when you like look at miniatures and just seeing how it looks. And when you watch the VR thing, I wanted to create this effect of just seeing this almost like Toyland coming about. And I don't think Toyland's like the right term to use, considering the context of the film, but just seeing how a light moves and evolves like that, it's like quite it's just something satisfying about it. Because I did try and create, I don't think the camera I think should have been, well, I think the camera is low, because you do get kind of some kind of scale, but I feel like if I did put it down lower, then I think that would have been better. And also you can see on the pavements there's some cut out buildings from the documentary which are also rising as well, to really emphasize that theme. And oh yeah, and luckily these are these 3D poppies actually? And then they just get color over time. Oh yeah, because all of this film was rendered as normal, and then just simply added a black and white filter on top. But when you mask it around, that's where you can create color. And you can see some of the windows having lighting, and there's a blue one on the right which isn't very convincing, but never mind. Sorry, I just got distracted by something. But yeah, and not to mention because the design of the buildings aren't too bad. Like, even the roofs are like rather good, and you can see like detailed chimneys and that. And yeah, and also it's not just people at the windows. There's some like solid blocks where you can see men swinging mallets as they're trying to fix and sort the problem. And yeah, it was like the best way to add people outside of the building. Yeah, that's the plane kind of swinging about. There you go, here's the plants being a bit more full of colour, and then all of that slowly fades out, which, yeah, that fading out's okay. And then this is the most abstract scene, and it's probably my least favourite because it's just a bit more slapped on, but this is trying to represent Dover as a whole, and yeah, you can see how the sea horizon's not quite there because you can just see the right of the horizon. So yeah, if that was like a bit wider, then we would have had like a proper sea horizon. And you can also see how these hills were just slapped on, and the grass still looks far too big for texturing. But on the plus side, this is the most accurately portrayed segment, from the documentary. You can see the bloke narrating. You can see how he's trying to outline the plan, and so yeah, like some kind of road system, and even these arrows I've animated myself and placed them along, so there's like a bit more of a guide to following them. And I still like the assets still being in the sky, because you're like just slowly seeing which one's going to come next. So yeah, road system all across. This is oh yeah, a garden close to the coast. Plane looks okay then, but you'll see weird turns later on. And not to mention this whole setting goes into colour, which represents going into the modern era. Anyway, yeah, row of houses also down there too. And then yeah, those are industries, warehouses, just being added on, and yeah, represented in grander buildings, and you can also see people looping as well. And some other footage on the left too. Maybe it was like a closing segment. Oh yeah, the poppies come back. And yeah, that's pretty much the film. You see the boat in the background, that's kind of cool. I can't see the plane though. Where's the plane? Did I start animating the plane? I don't know. I was gonna have a look for it actually. Oh, it did go back and forth then a bit, so that wasn't very good. It's like a cool Easter egg, I suppose. To look for and that. So anyway, yeah, that was the film, and I don't quite remember the grading, but I remember it being okay, and it was certainly ambitious, because once all of the prior two films, the lesson stuff and the essay was out the way, I definitely had a lot more time with this, able to render all of this a second time, and because the first oh, it does show the year here actually. 47, okay, that makes more sense. Okay. So yeah, because I think it was like 400, 600, 800, and then 1,000 frames in each setting, and yeah, and what Maya did allow me to do was have all of these environments all open at once, and sorry, distracted again. Anyway, so yeah, yeah, I could render all of these settings at once, and granted there were times where they did glitch out, and not to mention there was just times where I have it still rendering overnight, over multiple nights, and whenever I wake up, I just like, is the how far is it with the rendering, and it yeah, sometimes it crashes, sometimes it keeps going, but you managed to do it twice. That was like quite a feat, and also on like college, I knew how to have these frames rendered on their own, so I could still progress all sorts whilst this was rendering, because I couldn't really do anything else. But once all of the frames were there, they were then added on After Effects. I did the assets, I had the effects, and that. And yeah, I remember showing it to everyone. That was a fun experience. And what else? Yeah, pre-production. Did show off all the individual assets and went for the color scheme of like green and that. And also just doing some research for what kind of activities people used to do back then. Whether it was shoe shining or mining, and even there's a kid with a bear at one point. And yeah, so I did also some research to capture more, of that 40s look. And yeah, I would have also researched enough the architecture and just see what the buildings were like, or even the buildings I've created have more of a timeless look, because when you look around, there's tons of houses that were even made in the 1800s and they still look modern enough. And so yeah, the research paid off, the progression was rather good, and yeah, I can't run out of things to say. But yeah, looking back, this is actually quite impressive. Like, I don't like the more abstract parts, and I think there's some effects that could have been applied better, such as like some of the lighting. But other than that, this is actually like a rather good feat. And I remember my tutor saying how I'm probably better at 3D than 2D, whilst I was more into 2D because of the kind of style I've had, and also what I want to do more in future. But yeah, when you look, but I think with 3D, there's like, once you know the basics, there is like a simplicity to it. Like, such as like moving these buildings, and once you learn the extruding tool, then that's where you can just like go wild and create anything. And so yeah, even the texture is way better here compared to the more previous 3D attempts, and also the applying the footage was yeah, it blends well enough, and I think I did create an effect so it didn't look like a slapped on screen. It just looks like yeah, just like mixed in the sky somewhere. Even look at that sky as well. That is gorgeous. It's a bit grey at the bottom there, but never mind. The sun is still out. And but yeah, I think this is a rather well done film. Yeah, I was quite impressed with it, and I think it feels like one of the longest, but it was also like one of the most inventive, because you wouldn't think they could imply all of this in a 3D setting and have it still interact with it, but no, you still can, and it's really cool. So yeah, I think I'll save it there. That's the film, and so yeah, I hope you like it, and yeah, I'll see you next time.